Panic erupts in Galaxy Council as humans refuse to negotiate. HFY, the emergency chamber of the Galactic Council, had never been this loud. Hundreds of delegates from dozens of species spoke at once. Some shouted in fear, others in anger. Translators struggled to keep up as voices overlapped and emotions ran high. Screens along the curved walls showed star maps filled with blinking symbols, human colonies, human fleets, human trade routes. Too many of them had gone dark. High Counselor Vethrix struck the crystal dais with one of his jointed limbs. The sound echoed like a bell of warning. "Silence!" he commanded. Slowly the chamber quieted. Fear still hung heavy in the air like static before a storm. Vethrix turned his large, unblinking eyes toward the central display. "Begin the report again, slowly, clearly." A thin, blue-skinned analyst stepped forward. Her hands trembled as she adjusted the controls. 47 standard hours ago, she said, we lost communication with 8 human frontier systems. There were no distress signals, no explosions, no radiation spikes. Power grids are intact. Cities appear empty. A murmur rippled through the chamber. "Empty," one delegate hissed. "That is impossible," the analyst swallowed. "Scans confirm it. Life signs are gone. Ships, stations, and infrastructure remain, but the humans themselves are missing." Vethrix felt a cold sensation crawl through his spine. Humans did not abandon worlds without reason. They were stubborn, emotional, and deeply attached to their homes. If they left, something was very wrong. "Have they declared war?" another counselor asked. "No," the analyst replied. "No military signals. No hostile movements toward council space." The murmurs grew louder again. "If not war, then what?" demanded Ambassador Krell of the Jani. "Are they hiding, preparing?" Before anyone could answer, a new alert chimed. The analyst's eyes widened. More updates coming in. "Human fleets are moving." The chamber fell silent. Vethrix leaned forward. "Toward us?" The analyst shook her head. "No, away from council borders. They are repositioning to human-controlled space only, defensive formations. They are sealing jump gates, cutting access." That made no sense. In every previous conflict, humans responded loudly. They protested. They argued. They threatened. Sometimes they even begged before they fought. This time they were saying nothing. "Send a formal request for explanation," Vethrix ordered. "Invoke council protocol, demand negotiations." The message was transmitted across known space within minutes. A standard diplomatic summons marked urgent and mandatory. Then the council waited. Hours passed. Nothing came back. No reply, no acknowledgement. Not even an automated response. Unease turned into panic. "They cannot ignore a council summons," Ambassador Krell said sharply. "No species has ever." "They just did," another delegate interrupted. Vethrix felt the weight of history pressing down on him. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council less than a century ago. Young, loud, idealistic, they argued against exploitation, against acceptable losses, against decisions made far from the people who suffered them. And yet they had always complied in the end, until now. "Send another message," Vethrix said. "Offer dialogue, concessions if necessary." The second message was softer, carefully worded. Respectful, still there was no answer. Across the chamber, fear began to show openly. Some delegates whispered prayers. Others checked private channels, sending frantic messages to their governments. "What if they are angry?" a soft-voiced delegate asked. "What if this silence is the warning?" Vethrix did not answer because he was thinking the same thing. Humans were known for many things: creativity, endurance, empathy, but above all they were known for one terrifying trait. When humans stopped talking, it meant they had already decided. A junior aide hurried to the dais. "High Counselor, intelligence update." Vethrix nodded. Human-civilian traffic has vanished from shared trade lanes. No merchant ships, no medical transports, no engineers. Human-owned corporations are shutting down operations across Council space. Entire supply chains are collapsing. That caused an uproar. "They can't do that overnight. They just did. Our stations rely on human technicians. Our food shipments," Vethrix raised his limb again. "Order," the aide continued, voice shaking. "We are also receiving reports from independent worlds. Humans are evacuating non-human personnel from their systems, peacefully, providing supplies, escorting them home." "Why would they do that?" Vethrix asked. The aide hesitated. "It appears planned, coordinated, as if they prepared for this long ago." That was when true fear took root. Planning required time, secrecy, patience. Humans were capable of all three when pushed far enough. Another alert flashed. The analyst spoke again. "High Counselor, we have a message." The chamber leaned forward as one. "From the humans," someone whispered. The analyst nodded. "Yes, a single transmission, no encryption, no threats." The message appeared on the central display. Simple, plain, there was no emblem, no greeting, just words. "We acknowledge receipt of your messages." The chamber erupted with noise again. They answered. "Finally, play the rest." "That is the entire message," the analyst said quietly. Silence fell harder than before. That is not a negotiation," Ambassador Krell said. "No," Vethrix replied slowly. "It is a statement." "They know we are watching," he realized, "and they want us to feel it." Vethrix straightened. "Request a human envoy, demand clarification." The third message went out, firm but controlled. This time, a reply came quickly, only one sentence. "Negotiation is not possible at this time." Fear became visible. "What does that mean?" a delegate demanded. "It means," Vethrix said, choosing his words carefully, "that humanity has decided something already." Across the galaxy, human worlds moved like parts of a single machine. Borders hardened. Fleets stood silent and ready. Colonies once considered minor were fortified overnight. Data lines went dark. Human AI systems withdrew from shared networks, leaving alien systems suddenly slow and blind. Yet no weapons fired. No threats were spoken. The Council had prepared for rage. They had not prepared for refusal. Deep within a secure human facility far from Council space, a man stood before a wall of stars. Director Elias Morneau clasped his hands behind his back. His hair was gray now, his face lined with years of compromise and regret. "Council response?" he asked. A young officer shook her head. "Confusion, panic, they keep requesting talks." Morneau nodded. "As expected." "Sir," she hesitated, "are we really doing this?" Morneau did not turn. "We are already doing it." He remembered the reports, the votes held behind closed doors. The words "acceptable losses" stamped across human colonies that were too far, too small, too inconvenient to protect. Humans had argued then, begged, trusted. Now they were done. "No threats," Morneau said softly. "No speeches. Let them feel the silence. Let them see what the galaxy looks like without us holding it together." The officer swallowed. "And if they apologize?" Morneau finally turned, eyes steady. "Then we will listen, but we will never negotiate our worth again." Back in the Galactic Council chamber, High Counselor Vethrix felt something he had never felt before in all his centuries of service. Power slipping away, not taken by force, but withdrawn. And in that quiet realization, he understood the truth that terrified him most. Humanity was not preparing to fight the galaxy. They were preparing to let it face the consequences alone. The first signs of collapse did not come from battle reports or burning worlds. They came from numbers. Trade indexes across the galaxy began to fall at the same time. Shipping schedules slipped. Manufacturing hubs reported delays. Medical stations sent quiet warnings about missing components. At first, each problem looked small and manageable. Together, they formed a pattern that terrified economists. Human labor guilds had withdrawn overnight. Human-run logistics AIs were offline. Maintenance crews that once moved freely between species simply stopped showing up. Stations that relied on human-designed systems discovered that no one else fully understood how they worked. In the Galactic Council chamber, panic turned from fear into blame. "This is sabotage," Ambassador Krell shouted. "They are strangling us without firing a weapon." High Counselor Vethrix said nothing. He was staring at a data stream showing food shortages spreading through 5 neutral sectors. Each one had depended on human freight ships to move grain from high-yield worlds. "They warned us," murmured a delegate from a smaller species. "They said our system was unfair." "We voted," another snapped. "That is governance." "That was convenience," the first replied quietly. Another aide rushed in breathless. "Counselors, human fleets have taken control of the Karsus corridor." The room erupted. "That corridor is neutral." "They are blocking our access." Vethrix raised a limb. "Clarify, are they attacking ships?" "No," the aide said. "They are guiding traffic. Only human vessels pass freely. Others are rerouted safely, but delayed." Delayed meant shortages. Delays meant unrest. It was control without violence. On a border station near the corridor, Station Master Yel Tora watched the chaos unfold. Lines of ships filled the docking grid, all waiting for clearance that never came. Human patrol craft drifted calmly nearby, weapons cold, lights steady. A human officer appeared on Yell's screen. "Station Master," the officer said politely, "we recommend you activate emergency ration protocols." "You are causing this emergency," Yell snapped. The officer did not argue. "We are preventing something worse. By starving us. By refusing to enable a system that treats some lives as expendable," the officer replied. "We are escorting medical ships through, nothing else." Yell opened his mouth to protest, then closed it. He could see the data himself. Human ships were letting hospital convoys through first. Evacuation vessels followed. Luxury transports waited at the back. Fair, cold, unmovable, across council space, protests erupted. Citizens demanded answers their leaders could not give. Some worlds accused the council of provoking humanity. Others demanded punishment. Still, the humans said nothing more. Deep in human territory, Director Morneau listened to reports in silence. "Border tensions increasing," an officer said. "No shots fired. Some alien patrols are testing our responses." "And," Morneau asked, "we hold position, we assist civilians, we do not engage." Morneau nodded. "Good," another officer spoke. "Sir, internal projections show this pressure will force council talks within weeks." Morneau's jaw tightened. "They can talk when they are ready to listen." He looked at a hologram of the galaxy. So many lines once connected to human hubs. Now those lines were gone, like nerves cut cleanly. This was not revenge, it was boundaries. On the council floor, desperation grew. "We must offer something," Vethrix said at last. "Publicly." "Offer what?" Krell demanded. "They refuse to negotiate." "Then we change what there is to negotiate," Vethrix replied. A proposal was rushed through emergency channels. An apology carefully phrased, a promise to review past votes, a statement of regret. The message was sent. This time the human reply came after a delay. "Review is insufficient," that was all. The words spread through the chamber like poison. "They want punishment," someone whispered. "No," Vethrix said slowly. "They want accountability." As if to underline the point, new reports arrived. On 3 outer worlds, human ships had arrived not with weapons, but with supplies. Refugees from species caught in the shortages were being fed and sheltered inside human space. "They are helping non-humans," a delegate said, confused. "Even now." "Yes," Vethrix replied, "on their terms." On one such world, a young alien mother watched as a human medic treated her child. The human spoke softly, explaining each step. No questions were asked about species or politics. "Why are you helping us?" she asked. The medic paused. "Because you didn't vote to sacrifice anyone?" Back in the council chamber, that same truth finally surfaced. An ancient archive was accessed. A classified vote from years earlier. A decision to label certain frontier systems as acceptable losses in a hypothetical conflict. Most of them human, the file spread like wildfire. Citizens across the galaxy learned the truth at the same time. Riots followed, not against humans, against the council. Vethrix watched the feeds in numb silence. "They know," he said. "Yes," the analyst replied. Humans released the files, no edits, no commentary, just facts. Krell slumped into his seat. "We did this." Vethrix felt centuries of certainty crumble. "We thought humans would argue forever," he said quietly. "We did not imagine they would walk away." Another message arrived from human space. This one was longer. "We are not your shield, your workforce, or your sacrifice. We will return to shared systems when shared responsibility exists. Until then, we will protect our own, and those who ask for help without demanding it." No threat, no deadline, just a line drawn across the stars. As the council chamber fell into stunned silence, Vethrix understood the second terrible truth. Humanity had not isolated itself out of fear. They had done it out of clarity. And the galaxy was beginning to realize how much it had depended on humans to carry the weight it refused to face. The silence was no longer empty. It was heavy. And it was only the beginning. The galaxy did not break all at once. It cracked in slow, painful lines that spread from world to world. At first, leaders tried to deny what was happening. They blamed shipping delays on weather anomalies. They blamed food shortages on local corruption. They blamed medical failures on outdated equipment. But the truth could not be hidden for long. Human systems had been the backbone of shared space. Their engineers maintained jump gates no one else fully understood. Their navigators mapped unstable routes others avoided. Their diplomats smoothed disputes before fleets ever launched. Now all of that was gone. On the agricultural world of Brental, silos stood full, but no ships came to collect the grain. The Brental people did not have enough transports of their own. They had always relied on human freight contracts. The grain began to rot. On the industrial moon Kesh 9, factories slowed to a crawl. Human-designed machines waited for software updates that never came. Engineers tried to rewrite the code, but every attempt caused more failures. On the medical hub Ceres Prime, doctors faced impossible choices. Human-produced medicines had no substitutes. Patients were placed on waiting lists that grew longer each day. Still, the humans did not attack. They did not threaten. They did not demand. They simply stayed away. In the Galactic Council chamber, the atmosphere shifted from panic to something worse: guilt. High Counselor Vethrix sat alone after another emergency session ended in shouting. The chamber lights dimmed as delegates left to deal with unrest on their home worlds. An aide approached quietly. "High Counselor, there is something you should see." Vethrix followed the aide to a private archive room. The walls glowed as old records were brought up, records marked sealed, restricted, forgotten. "This archive was accessed by humans," the aide said. "They did not alter it, they only removed the lock." Vethrix's eyes scanned the display: dates, vote tallies, risk assessments. Then he saw it. A motion passed decades ago. A contingency plan for a potential war with an unknown hostile power. To protect core council worlds, border systems would be sacrificed if necessary. Next to the words, acceptable losses were star system names. Human star systems, colonies, mining worlds, agricultural outposts. Places built by families, not fleets. Vethrix's limbs trembled. "This was classified," he whispered. "Yes," the aide replied. "Humans were not meant to see it. But they did. And now," the aide said softly, "everyone else does too." Across the galaxy, the document spread. No human commentary, no emotional speech. Just the raw truth shared freely. Public reaction was immediate. On some worlds, citizens were shocked into silence. On others, anger exploded into the streets. "You voted us expendable. Council lies." Humans were right. Council buildings were surrounded by protesters. Delegates were forced into hiding. Some governments collapsed overnight under the weight of public outrage. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council lost control of the narrative. And still, the humans said almost nothing. On Earth, Director Elias Morno watched the same feeds: protests, resignations, apologies spoken too late. A junior advisor stood nearby. "Sir, they are blaming each other now." Morno nodded. "That was inevitable." "Are we pushing too hard?" the advisor asked. "Some worlds are close to collapse." Morno turned, his expression tired but firm. "We warned them for years, we argued, we compromised, we saved their people even when they would not save ours." He paused, then added, "We are not punishing them, we are stopping the bleeding." The advisor hesitated. "And if they fall anyway?" Morno looked back at the stars. "Then they fall knowing why." Not all alien worlds turned away from humanity. Some reached out quietly. Small species, fringe systems, worlds that had never held real power in the Council. They sent messages directly to human space, not to demand help, but to ask questions. What did humans want? What would trust look like? Human replies were careful and consistent. "We want shared responsibility. We want transparency. We want no more hidden votes that decide who lives and who dies." On the world of Lura 5, a small avian species made a historic choice. Their planetary council broadcast a public apology to humanity. They admitted their representatives had voted with the majority without understanding the cost. "We were wrong," their leader said. "We did not protect our neighbors." The broadcast spread quickly. Human response came hours later. A supply convoy altered course toward Lura 5. Food, medical aid, engineers, no announcement, just action. Others noticed. In council space, fear began to compete with hope. "They are helping those who take responsibility," Ambassador Krell said during a private meeting with Vethrix. "Yes," Vethrix replied. "They are teaching by example." Krell lowered his voice. "Then what are we?" Vethrix did not answer. Another crisis erupted soon after. A border dispute between two non-human species turned violent. In the past, human peacekeepers would have intervened within days. This time they did not. The conflict spread, trade routes closed, refugees fled. The Council issued a desperate call for mediation. The human response was short. This conflict exists because restraint was outsourced. Resolve it yourselves. The message hit harder than any threat. Without humans as a stabilizing force, old grudges resurfaced. Ancient rivalries ignited. The galaxy was being forced to confront problems it had ignored for generations. Some leaders adapted, others broke. High Counselor Vethrix stood before the full council for what might be the last time. "We cannot continue like this," he said. "The humans have shown us our reflection, and we do not like what we see." Murmurs spread. "They have not attacked us," Vethrix continued. "They have not conquered us. They have simply removed themselves, and the galaxy is unraveling." A delegate shouted, "Then give them what they want." Vethrix raised a limb. "What they want is not power, it is principle." Silence followed. Outside council space, a human patrol escorted a convoy of refugees to safety. Among them was a young alien who looked up at a human officer. "Are you angry at us?" the alien asked. The officer thought for a moment. "No," she said. "We're just done pretending everything was fine." Back on Earth, Director Morno received a secure message. "Sir," an aide said, "the council is collapsing. Several species are requesting a new framework, one that includes humanity as an equal, not a resource." Morno closed his eyes briefly. "Tell them," he said, "we are listening." "But," the aide asked. "But listening does not mean agreeing," Morno replied. In the council chamber, Vethrix felt the weight of history settle on him. The era of quiet exploitation was ending. Humanity had not destroyed the galaxy. They had forced it to grow up. And as the truth spread, one fact became impossible to deny. The humans were not absent. They were watching. And the choices the galaxy made now would decide whether they ever truly returned. The turning point did not come with explosions or grand speeches. It came with hunger. On worlds that had never known shortage, ration lines formed. On stations that once glittered with trade, lights dimmed to save power. Systems that had relied on human oversight began to fail in small but dangerous ways. A jump gate misaligned by a fraction of a degree. A medical fabricator produced flawed doses. A weather control array shut down for routine maintenance that never ended. None of these failures were dramatic on their own. Together, they pushed the galaxy toward the edge. The Galactic Council reconvened, but this time the chamber was half empty. Some delegates had resigned, others were trapped on worlds dealing with unrest. A few governments no longer existed in any meaningful way. High Counselor Vethrix stood at the center, older than he had ever felt. "We must speak plainly," he said. "This is no longer a crisis. It is a reckoning," no one argued. Ambassador Krell rose slowly. Gone was his usual sharp tone. "The humans are not returning under our old terms, that much is clear." "Yes," Vethrix replied, "and forcing them is impossible." A delegate from a core world slammed a limb against the floor. "Then we beg." The word echoed. Some bristled. Others looked relieved. Vethrix did not reject it. "Begging without change will fail," he said. "Humans do not want submission, they want assurance." "Assurance of what?" someone asked. "That no life will ever again be marked expendable by a quiet vote," Vethrix answered. The chamber fell silent. At that moment, a transmission arrived, not from the humans, but from one of the oldest council archives. A live feed from a border world on the brink of famine. Citizens stood before their leaders, holding copies of the released document. "You chose others to die," one voice shouted. "Why should we trust you now?" shouted another. The council was no longer arguing with humanity. They were arguing with their own people. In human space, Director Elias Morno listened as advisors debated quietly behind him. "They're unraveling," one said. "If this continues, some systems won't survive the year." Morno nodded. "And if we rush back in, nothing changes." Another advisor spoke carefully. "There is growing support for a public address, not a threat, a statement of principles." Morno considered it. For weeks, humanity had let silence speak, but silence could not build something new. "Prepare it," he said. "Simple, clear. No emotion." The address went out across open channels the next day. No banners, no dramatic music, just a human woman standing against a plain background. "We are not your enemies," she said calmly, "but we will no longer be your shield without consent." Across the galaxy, people stopped to listen. "We will not negotiate from fear," she continued. "We will not trade lives for stability. We will not hide truths behind sealed votes." The message ended with a single condition. When shared responsibility exists, shared futures are possible. That was all. The reaction was immediate. On dozens of worlds, planetary leaders issued public apologies, not just to humanity, but to their own citizens. Classified voting records were opened. Emergency laws were repealed. Councils dissolved themselves and reformed under public oversight. It was messy, painful, chaotic, but it was real. In the Galactic Council chamber, Vethrix watched these changes unfold with something close to awe. "They are changing without us ordering it," Ambassador Krell said quietly. "Yes," Vethrix replied, "because humans never demanded obedience, only honesty." Still, the crisis was far from over. A major trade hub, Velcor Prime, teetered on collapse. Its orbital farms failed and its population faced starvation. Human convoys passed nearby but did not divert. The Council sent an emergency plea. Hours passed, then a reply came. "We will assist," the message said, "under observation." Human ships arrived not as saviors, but as partners. They worked alongside local crews, explaining systems instead of controlling them. Every decision was documented and shared publicly. Citizens watched in disbelief as humans refused exclusive authority. "Why are you showing us everything?" a local official asked a human engineer. "So you don't need us next time," the engineer replied. That moment spread across the galaxy faster than any speech. This was not domination, it was empowerment. Back in the council chamber, the final decision loomed. Vethrix stood before the remaining delegates. "We must choose," he said. "We can cling to the old council and watch it collapse, or we can dismantle it ourselves." Gasps followed. "Dismantle," someone cried. "This council has stood for 1,000 cycles. And for how many of those did it quietly decide who mattered?" Vethrix asked. No one answered. A vote was called, not sealed, not classified. Broadcast lived to the galaxy. The motion passed. The Galactic Council, as it had existed, dissolved itself. In its place, a provisional assembly was formed, one where no vote could be hidden and no species could be sacrificed without unanimous consent. The final act was the hardest. A formal request was sent to humanity. Not a demand, not a bargain, an invitation. "We ask you to return," it said, "not as protectors, but as equals." On Earth, Director Morno read the message in silence. An aide asked softly, "Is it enough?" Morno looked out at the stars, remembering the lost colonies, the names carved into quiet memorials. "It's a beginning," he said. The human response was measured. A delegation would attend. No fleets, no ultimatums, just people. When the human representatives entered the new assembly chamber, the atmosphere changed, not with fear, but with respect. Vethrix met them at the center. "We failed you," he said simply, "and we failed ourselves." The human delegate nodded. "We know." "Will you help us rebuild?" Vethrix asked. The human delegate paused. "Yes," she said, "but this time we build it together." Across the galaxy, systems stabilized, not instantly, not easily, but steadily. For the first time in generations, the galaxy was not being held together by one species carrying the burden alone. Humanity had not won by force. They had won by refusing to accept a broken peace. And as the stars slowly grew quieter, one truth settled into every corner of known space. The most powerful thing humans ever did was not to fight. It was to say, calmly and together, "No more." Care. Weeks after the old council dissolved, the new assembly began its work. There were no grand halls filled with symbols of power. Meetings were held in simple chambers, streamed openly to every world that wished to watch. Every vote was recorded. Every objection was heard. For many leaders, this transparency felt like standing naked in a storm. But for ordinary citizens, it felt like breathing fresh air for the first time. Human representatives did not rush to lead. They listened. They asked questions. When asked for solutions, they offered options, not commands. On the world of Velcor Prime, the orbital farms began producing again. This time, local engineers ran the systems themselves. Human advisors stood nearby, correcting mistakes gently, never taking control. A Velcor official watched the process with disbelief. "You could run all of this faster," he said to a human technician. "Yes," the technician replied, "but then you would need us forever." That idea spread quietly but powerfully. Across shared space, joint task groups formed. Humans worked alongside other species, not above them. They trained medics, engineers, and navigators with one rule repeated again and again. Knowledge shared is safety multiplied. High Counselor, now simply Speaker, Vethrix spent his days traveling instead of ruling. He visited worlds that had suffered under the old system. He listened to anger without defending himself. He apologized without conditions. On a mining colony once listed as expendable, a worker asked him, "Why should we trust this new system?" Vethrix bowed his head. "You shouldn't," he said. "Trust should be earned again every day." That honesty did more than any promise ever had. Still, not everyone accepted the change. A coalition of former power-holding species attempted to reclaim control. They hoarded resources, blocked votes, and tried to pressure humanity into resuming its old role as stabilizer. The human response was calm and firm. They did not confront the coalition. They simply refused to compensate for it. Trade rerouted. Aid flowed around the obstruction. Systems that cooperated thrived. Those that clung to the past fell behind. The message was clear without being spoken. Responsibility was no longer optional. On Earth, Director Elias Morn watched the new Assembly's sessions from a quiet office. He had stepped down from active command, his work finally done. An aide entered softly. "Sir, they're calling this era the balance." Morno smiled faintly. "Names come later. But they're also calling it something else," the aide added. "They're calling it the age of refusal." Morno considered that. "That's fair." The aide hesitated. "Do you ever regret not pushing harder? We could have forced faster change." Morno shook his head. "Forced change breaks. Chosen change lasts." In the assembly chamber, a critical vote approached. The creation of a charter that would bind all member species, not with force but with shared standards. No hidden clauses, no emergency exceptions, no expendable categories. The charter stated simply, no life would be sacrificed without full knowledge, full consent, and full accountability. When the vote passed unanimously, there was no cheering, only quiet relief. The human delegate stood and addressed the chamber. "This charter will fail," she said plainly. Gasps followed. "It will fail if you stop protecting it," she continued. "If you grow comfortable, if you assume someone else will carry the burden." She looked around the chamber. "We will not carry it alone again." Vethrix rose in response. "Nor should you." Outside the chamber, a young alien watched the broadcast beside a human child on a shared station. They did not fully understand the politics, but they understood the feeling. Hope. Months turned into a year. Trade stabilized. Conflicts still happened, but they were smaller, contained, and resolved by those involved. The galaxy did not become peaceful. It became honest. On the anniversary of the silence, the day humans had first refused to negotiate, a simple message was broadcast from Earth. No warnings, no praise, just a record, a list of the worlds lost under the old system, human and non-human alike, their names spoken aloud one by one. At the end, Director Morno spoke briefly. "We remember," he said, "so we do not repeat." Across the galaxy, people listened in silence. High Speaker Vethrix stood alone afterward, gazing at the stars. A human delegate joined him. "You changed everything," Vethrix said quietly. The human shook her head. "No, we stopped enabling what was wrong. You changed the rest." Vethrix exhaled slowly. "I once believed power was the ability to decide. And now?" the human asked. "Now I know power is the ability to refuse," Vethrix said. In the distance, ships moved through shared space, human and alien together, no escort formations. No dominance displays, just cooperation. Humanity did not rule the galaxy. They did something far more difficult. They taught it how to stand without leaning on sacrifice. And for the first time in a very long time, the future was not decided in secret. It was built openly by all who lived under the stars.